Welcome back to the Real Investment Hour. I'm Danny Ratliff with RIchard Rosso. And our special guest, Jodie Eisenhardt, dog lover, animal rights activist. We were just talking a little bit about the cost of dog ownership and
pet ownership.
Yeah, in general. And maybe what are some of the things that people need to take into consideration? You're just talking about the intake line at one of the rescues, and the things you would hear. Aren't most of those probably excuses more that somebody should have thought of prior to owning a pet, right?
To me, it is, because I feel like I can trace, every problem in this country back to lack of personal responsibility, but that's just me. Just me. And so, but there are real issues. There are real issues, though. And to me, one of the problems we have in Houston, obviously, with so many stray and abandoned pets, spay and neuter is something that people need to factor in when they get a pet. If you get it through one of the rescue organizations, it's going to be spayed or neutered, or if it's a puppy or young animal, there's going to be a plan for that. But a lot of people don't factor that in, and that's really something that some cities have mandated spay neuter laws. We don't have those here. I don't necessarily know that just doing that would have a huge impact until we have the resources to back that up. But I will tell you that I used to be on the board for the Spay Neuter Assistance Program. And there are so many people who want to do the right thing. They really want to spay and neuter their animal, and we just don't have enough resources. So, when the mobile units would come into the neighborhoods, people would be lined up at the crack of dawn. There was always a waiting list. There were always, dozens, if not hundreds more people than we could, accommodate in a day. And so you somehow have to figure out, in a city like Houston, where we have such a huge problem, how do we get the private sector with the public sector, recognize that it is a public health issue, because it is. All the stray and abandoned animals that we have, the bite cases that are reported in certain parts of town, it's a real problem.
And the dogs, I see a lot of animals run free in certain parts of town. It's really heartbreaking to see. I know you post some about and trying to help.
Yeah.
And get and I don't know. Again, I think it's a huge responsibility. I know the ASPCA had a study that said, well, the first year of pet ownership is $1,000.
Yeah.
I personally, just based on tracking these costs for clients for so many years, it's pretty low.
It is.
I know what my budget is, and you'd be shocked. No, you probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't,
be shocked.
because you're like me. But I do want people to know also that there are resources, and there are things that people can do. There are low cost vet clinics all the time.
So let's take a step back, because this is important. So you may not be able to spend $7,000, $6,000 a year on your pet, or $500 vet bills, but there are resources.
Yeah, there are resources.
Is there a place where you can find? Well, I know you're going to list them, but also places where people can find these resources to make sure they can keep their pets.
If you Google, discount vets Houston, a ton of stuff comes up. I personally know of a lot that I can refer to people. SNAP, Spay Neuter Assistance Program, has low-cost spay neuter. That's the most important thing. You really have to do that.
And vaccines.
Vaccines, very important. One of the issues we just had recently in Houston that affected me personally was a huge distemper outbreak at the City Pound at Bark. Which is where the rescue group that I foster and volunteer and fundraise for, Rescued Pets Movement, we have saved 27,000 animals in 4.5 years, primarily from the city shelter. And so we pull them when they're on the euthanasia list. They are temp fostered by people like me and other temp fosters, and then they get to go live amazing lives up north in parts of the country that actually have a need for adoptable pets. So it's based on supply and demand. And so we had a huge distemper outbreak at the City Pound, and the litter that I was fostering at the time, they actually broke with distemper. It was 10 puppies, and 8 of them passed away. I've still got the remaining 2. They're going to get to go to their forever home soon. But that one issue with people not vaccinating their animals ended up causing a huge crisis. The City Pound had to be closed for over a week for them to just get a hold of it and try.
I can't imagine how that spreads.
It's airborne,
yes.
And so it's a devastating virus. And so you have to spay neuter, you have to vaccinate your pets. In Houston, Texas, especially, also you have to give monthly heartworm preventative. Huge, or your dogs will have heartworms if they go outside ever, because it's transmitted by mosquitoes and mosquito larvae. And so a lot of people don't factor that in. Fleas, we have a huge flea problem, here too.
Yes.
And so you look at flea control and heartworm meds. You're going to $25 a month. And again, there are resources. There are discount vets. There are wellness vets that are really trying to help people with those sorts of expenses. And same with spay neuter. But even a discount spay neuter, depending on the size of the dog, you're looking at $200 to $300 unless you get involved in one of the programs at SNAP, or there's a great effort right now called Big Fix Houston that's really working in some of these tough neighborhoods and going door to door and helping people understand, because the other problem we have is that a lot of people don't contain their animals. They just let them kind of roam. Certain parts of the town look like third world countries.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, we have to get people to take responsibility to follow the leash laws, because you really aren't allowed to have your animal just out running around like that. And if they are out running around like that, chances are they're hooking up with some other animal, because we've got so many stray and abandoned on the streets. And so exponentially that problem just grows worse every year. And we're doing a lot to save as many as we can. We've got the city pound now at like an 85% save rate versus about 40% when Rescue Pets Movement got involved.
That's amazing.
But we have to also work on the bigger picture to slow the intake down, to stop the intake. And so, again, this comes back to, why are people surrendering their pets? Why aren't people taking responsibility for their pets? And, we do have people, one of the things, people will come in with a senior dog, that has a lot of health issues, and people will say, I just can't manage it. And so they'll, turn in a senior. No, it kills me. Ultimately, I feel like I'm going to have all like old, beat up.
You're going to be like me. You're going to have like 100 dogs.
I would, if they all got along. There's no telling how many I'd have.
I know, it's scary.
But it's just the things that people come up with, it blows my mind. But I do also really understand that financially, sometimes people are put into a huge bind. But I think people have to plan for that, because if any of us have had pets, we've all had those expenses come up. And so I just sort of, I know it's going to happen.
Well, you may not have heard this, and I've been tracking expenses for a while, and I see inflation on these kinds of costs, at these pet costs, at 6%, 7%, 8% a year, and they don't go backwards. They continue to go higher. And there was a point maybe about 10 years ago where I was against pet insurance, and as I've done my homework, I see the value of it. And I've got a piece out there that people can Google, but how to find pet insurance, unless you can save money every month like you do an emergency fund, that you can place some dollars aside as opposed to that, so that you don't have to make this horrible choice for your loved pet to say, my gosh, I cannot treat them. Yeah. I need to put them down. I need to put them at peace, as opposed to maybe there's a treatment, but it might cost me $2,000, $5,000. And how many people can handle that?
Even the $700 or $800 expense, which I just went through recently with one of mine, with a growth that came up on her mouth, and we got it removed, and it actually ended up being fine. It wasn't malignant, but still, that was a little $700 thing. I think pet insurance is a great idea. I've been researching it, and I was wondering what your take would be from an investment.
No, I am an advocate for
standpoint.
I'm first advocate for, if you can pay it out of pocket and put the money aside, and there are people who can, and do that. And if they do a financial plan, they can actually put a line item, say, listen, I've got pet costs. This is my passion. And we see what baby boomers have done. They have replaced, as their children have grown and not having children, the pets are becoming the children.
That's what I did.
Even millennials are picking up on this, that they want pets. So if you can put the money aside, do that. But again, if not, you need to mitigate that risk and give it to the insurance company.
Yeah,
and it's not going to cover the routine stuff, but it'll cover the illnesses that would break you,
the chronic
where you would have to make that horrible
stuff.
Decision of, I can't afford this.
But a lot of them even cover some of the wellness care now.
There is more wellness care being added to the policies, absolutely.
Because again, you've got to bring them in, you've got to get the heart, and they won't give you the heartworm medication for a year unless you do the blood test every year. And that's just part of it. It's part of owning a pet. And I think a lot of times people are just naive. They'll see a cute puppy, and again, in Houston, Texas, we have people that sell those on the side of the road. It's one of the things that I'd like to see done away with.
That. Is that my imagination, or is?
I hope it's less, but our laws are not what they should be on that, and we just that's one of the things people ask me all the time. How come the places that you guys send the animals to, how come they don't have all these animals in Colorado? And I'm like, well, they've got really strict spay neuter laws, they've got really strict breeder regulations there, and they don't have hundreds of thousands of stray and abandoned on the streets. procreating every year. And if they did, they would all freeze in the winter up there. And down here we have year-round breeding. So we sort of have the perfect storm here. And we haven't had leadership on the issue, which is sad to me. And I think a lot of people just don't realize what a problem we have until they find an animal that they want to help, and they realize there's no good place to take that animal. And I know you and I have been involved in, numerous cases on social media trying to help, because people go, and I've had a lot of people who've moved here from other places, and they go, oh my God, I've been living in Houston for 6 months. This is the 4th dog that I've found. I don't know what to do.
They're not used to it.
Yeah, and we don't have any no-kill shelters. So unless you're willing to foster that dog and sort of help that dog yourself, you kind of have to drop the dog at a place where you have to sign off that chances are it's, going to be put down. And that's heartbreaking for people, and that makes people want to do something about it.
Well, we're here with Jodie Eisenhardt and talking about pet costs and the pet situation and the state of the union here in Houston, and we're going to continue that in the next segment. You're listening to the Real Investment Hour on AM 700, the voice of Texas. Stay tuned.
You can get daily real investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for Lance's newsletter now at realinvestmentadvice.com.